No,
Oh, there you go.
I got it. There we go. Everybody heard it's recording. Perfect. So just going to chat about your environment a little bit, just so we can understand and how we can better set you up for success and how to work in different bodies of water. And then also how to kind of begin your scan, start off easier, and then move into your more complex environments, just to make sure you kind of progress more of a walk, jog, run, or crawl, walk, run, rather than a starting off the bat running. We'll talk about some of the key features of Aqua Eye. I see you have it there in front of you, so I might get someone to hold it up to point out some different parts of the device there while I'm going through them. And then just a couple of things to know about Aqua Eye before using it in a search. So how sonar travels, understanding false positives, things like that. And then we'll go back, touch on using Aqua Eye in your environment, and kind of cover that again, just to make sure we have that all set in stone. So just what the overview is going to look like, we'll talk about the components, the target map display, and then the echo map display. So I see you have your device there in front of you. So if some of you can see it. So first thing to note is A is the sensor. So that's that black bar at the front there. That's where the sonar comes in and out of. So when you're using the device, that part has to be submerged underneath the water. So if it's kind of bobbing in and out of the water, anything like that, you're not going to get a clear picture. So you want to make sure that that black bar is about 6 inches under the water. You can dive with it. You can go down up to 5 meters or 18 feet deep with it if you want, but you don't have to. It can be used off of a boat, off of a dock, wading in through the shore. But that black bar has to be submerged in order for the unit to work. So just keep that in mind when you're going out and testing it for the first time. If you're not getting it deep enough, it's kind of bobbing in and out, you're not going to get a great picture. And then to turn the device on, there's that big green square right on top. That's your power and range button. So tap that button and the device will boot up. And then there's 3 ranges. It starts off in long, and then there's short and medium ranges as well. To cycle through, you just tap that button, it'll go long, medium, short, back to long. The long range is 50 meters or 165 feet out. Medium range is 20 meters or 65 feet. And short range is 10 meters or 32 feet. So just keep that in mind. Generally, most teams will use long range, just doing their initial scans. It makes more sense to use medium short ranges if you're working in a lot of plant life, and I'll touch on that a bit later, or if you're working in a smaller body of water, because in medium short range, you can scan a little bit faster. So say you have come into like a pond or something like that, or a water reservoir that's a bit smaller, you might want to bounce down into your medium and short ranges. Also, if you do a scan in long range, it's kind of looking at a bigger picture. So if you do it in long range, you can go down into medium and short ranges, and you're kind of like zooming in on the image. So if there's something close by to you, you're trying to see it, but it's a little bit harder in that long range, you could zoom in and get a clear image of a smaller area. So it can kind of help in that sense as well. So C is your LCD screen. So that's turns on when you turn the device on. It is backlit. So if you'll see in the bottom corner, there's a little ambient light sensor. So if that's covered, the screen will light up. So if you're working in the dark, or if you're working in darker water, the screen will light up to help you see it as well. All of your scans get saved on that screen until you pull the trigger again. So you'll see underneath, there's a little trigger there. So to do your scan, what you do is you submerge the unit, pull the trigger, and then you hold that and scan left to right. And then once you release the trigger, you can pull the device out of the water and your scan stays on there until you pull the trigger again. Once you do pull that trigger, your original scan gets erased. So just be aware that when you're pulling it out, you can have a look, but don't pull the trigger again until you're ready to scan again. Handle does have a little loophole. You can attach it to some equipment or things like that. Lanyard. The device does float. So if you do drop it in the water, that's fine. It just might float away on you is the only thing. So if you want to attach it there, but it won't sink on you, which is good. Any questions about the device itself and kind of the components so far? Does that all make sense? All good? Perfect. So just going to run through a really quick video of how you can do a scan off of a dock in this case. Pretty straightforward. Just need to make sure you're submerging that black bar. Scan the area left to right. That's pretty it. It's pretty straightforward. All good?
Drag it. About that.
Were you okay?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, pretty straightforward to scan off of a dock there. Any questions on that little video? Pretty easy, best case scenario for that, and easiest water and stuff. So start off easy and then gets a little bit more complicated. So when you turn the device on, this is your target map display. So this is when you do a scan, this is the display that it will always show up in. So the key features to note here are the X, the O, this black bar along the outside there, and then this little black dot. I'll jump into what those mean. So if you've done a scan and you've marked an X, that's the device letting you know that that has a strong likelihood of being a person. So what the device is looking at, the sonar coming back, it's looking at the size, the shape, and the intensity or the density of that object. And we just have trained the device to know what a person's echo looks like versus other objects in the water to help differentiate between rocks, logs, and people. So if you've marked an X, that's kind of your go-to target. That's where you'll want to check out first. If you've marked an O in the water, that's an object less likely to be a person, still an object of note, but not likely to be a person, more likely to be a rock or a log or something like that. So a potential hazard that might be in the water. And then we have this feedback here. So that's this black bar that kind of runs along the outside. So that black bar will slowly start to fill up black as you're pulling that trigger and doing your scan. And it's letting you know that you're going at the right speed. If you're going too fast, you'll get some white gaps in your feedback bar. And that's letting you know that you need to scan a little bit more slowly. So kind of like how a panorama photo, when you're doing it with your phone, it tells you to slow down, you're going too fast. That's the purpose of this feedback bar, is to just let you know that you're going too quickly, not giving the sonar enough time to go out and come back. So I'm just going to jump back a couple slides here. So if you see in this picture on the left, there's some white gaps in that bar. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So that's just, you're missing a couple of sections of area. So you're not getting a fully clear picture. Like you can see here, when you get one kind of white gap, if it's still touching some of the person, you're still going to pick up that X, but you want to try and get that feedback bar as fully black as possible to make sure you're not missing any area. And then lastly is this live cursor. So that's this little black dot that kind of runs along the inside of this black bar. And once you release the trigger, that becomes live. And that helps you orientate yourself towards where your target is. So wherever you begin your scan, that's at 0 degrees. And then you hold the trigger and you do the scan left to right. And you can do a full 180-degree scan. You can do a 90-degree scan. You can do a 20-degree scan. It doesn't matter. But that that little cursor will help you figure out where your target is. So in this point, we've done about a 100-degree scan. And then we're pointing right now just to the right of our X. So what you would do is you would rotate the device and yourself in space until this black dot is in line with that X there. And you'll know, okay, directly in front of where I'm pointing, about 35 meters straight ahead is where my target is. So that way you can send a boat, a swimmer, anything out to where that target is from where you scanned. So that helps you figure out where the target is relative to where you did your scan. What a lot of our teams are doing is they'll have kind of someone doing the scan, and they'll have a reel or a rope that's marked with like meter increments or 5-meter increments. And they'll see, okay, I know that in this case, the target is 35 meters directly in front of me. So you'll send a swimmer or a boat out on the end of that reel or that rope and then the person with the Aqua Eye will stop the rope at the 35-meter mark, and then you'll direct the boat or the person towards where your target is. So they might be slightly to the left. So you'll just say, okay, keep going right. And eventually they'll be over top of where your target is. And then they can find the person that you're looking for. Any questions on this target map display? I know I'm throwing lots of information at you, but ask away. I see there's one in the back there.
We have a question in the back.
Mm-hmm.
You use many devices at once for the same target. They don't need two handheld devices.
Yeah. So just, it's a little bit hard to hear, but just want to make sure I asked the question, or I got the question right, is if you're using 2 devices, do they interfere with each other?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're using 2 devices, we recommend keeping them 100 meters away from each other. Just because if you're pointing them directly at each other, they will interfere. They will get feedback from other areas, from other Aqua Eyes, just because they're running at the same frequency. So if you are using 2 devices, try and keep them 100 meters away from each other, just because in long range, each one's going 50 meters out. So that will be enough for them to not interfere.
Grace, I also have another question. If we located our victim and sent a swimmer out, will this pick up the swimmer and will the X be moving on the scanner as we are pointing in the direction?
Yeah. So how Aqua Eye works, it kind of takes a picture of the area. So it's not kind of like the Dead Reckoning GPS where it's following them. So what you can do is if you did send a swimmer out, you could do another scan with the Aqua Eye, just a smaller area, because you know where your swimmer is. And now you've found your target, so you know where your target is. So you could do another scan and it would show 2 X's, because you'd have one for your target and one for the swimmer you just sent out. And then you can direct them till they're closer. Once those X's kind of become one, then you know that your swimmer is directly over top of your target. So that's the way you can do it. Any other questions?
What's the depth range on this?
The depth range of this? Grace, the question was, what's the depth range?
What is the depth range?
Yes.
Yep. So in all short, medium, and long ranges, the beam kind of goes out from the device and it goes down about 5 meters or 18 feet deep. So that's kind of what if you're doing a surface scan, you're getting about 18 feet deep. If you're wanting to scan deeper, because it is handheld, you just tilt the device down and you scan a bit deeper. And then you can scan 165 feet down as well. So if you're working in some deeper waters, you'd kind of want to do a scan in sections. So you do first layer of water. If nothing comes up, you can tilt the device down and do a second scan of a lower, deeper area of water.
One more question. Does the type of water impacted between salt and fresh?
Grace, does the type of water, fresh or salt water, impact the device at all?
Yeah, that won't impact the device fresh and salt water. We just kind of just rinse it off after you're done with it, just so there's nothing sitting on the device. But we're in Vancouver, so we used it in salt water all the time and fresh water, and that doesn't affect it.
Could I make one note to the very first question about using two devices? The other thing you can do, I don't know how you guys operate, but if you're on a boat or working in a situation where you can work in two directions or alternate, so just alternate. So if you're, say, for instance, you're working off of a boat and one of you is scanning one direction, one of you is scanning the other, you can just alternate as long as you're not firing at the exact same time. So we'll often do that in the field. If there's two of us out scanning, you just raise your hand, you're doing a scan, you put your hand down, and then you can look at your screen and analyze where you should go while the next person next to you is then starting their scan. So you can do that if you're good at communication and coordinate it.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Anything else before I jump into the next screen?
No, I think we're good.
All good?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is our Echo Map display. So you can't scan in this display. What you do is you do your scan in your target map display, and then you hold that power and range button down for 2 seconds, and you'll see your screen flip to black. And that's switching into the Echo Map display. So this is kind of more like your traditional sonar. So it kind of gives you a bird's eye view of the area that you're searching in. So it just helps you better understand your underwater environment. If you're getting into the water and you have no idea what's underneath there, you can do a quick scan, see what's going on. If you're looking for a vehicle that's gone into the water, it'll show up in this display. So how it works is it ranges from black to white based on intensity. So white being a really strong echo coming back and black being no echo coming back. So if you've marked an X on your screen or a person's underneath the water, they'll generally show up as a white or a yellow spot on your screen there. And then if you're looking for a vehicle, it'll show a really large white spot on your screen because it's a really big solid object. So another great way to use this mode is if there's an area that you scan in quite often, or like you get callouts if there's like a beachfront or something like that. You'll have two pillars that are always in the water there off of a dock, and then you get an emergency call out and there's this new yellow spot on your screen. You'll know that that's an area of interest that you might want to check out because it's an anomaly. It hasn't been there in the past. This is also great if you do have any sort of docks or piers with pillars on them, because you can't really, it's hard to search in between the pillars. So if you do a scan, you'll kind of see the pattern of the pillars going together. And if there's something or someone in the middle of them, you'll see them showing up on Echo Map because there'll be an anomaly in the pattern. So you'll know that that's a target of interest there. Any questions on this display?
When you're in this echo mode, is it a continuous scan or do you have to hold a button to scan while you're in echo mode?
Yeah, so you do your scan in your target map display. It takes a picture of the area that you just scanned pretty much, and then you switch into this display. So it's not a continuous, it's just a picture of the area that you just scanned. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just a couple things to know before jumping into the water. We'll touch on the beam shape, how sonar travels, and understanding any false positives that you might be getting. So this is kind of what the beam looks like. It's a fan shape. So if you're working in long range, it's going out 165 feet and down about 18 feet. And then it's about 2 to 3 feet wide is what the beam is. So you're kind of taking sections of area, and that's how it's working. So just something to keep in mind, that that's kind of what it means when you have like one of those gaps in that feedback bar. You're just kind of missing a little sliver of the picture. This just gives you an idea of how long or how fast it takes you to scan. So to do a full 180-degree scan, which goes out 165 feet, 18 feet down, and covers about an acre of area, takes about 2 minutes to do that scan. So just keep that in mind when you're filling up that feedback bar. Sometimes it does feel a little bit slow, but you're covering a really big body of water. So you're actually covering quite a bit of area and can get a lot of information from just one scan. And you'll kind of get the feel of the feedback bar too when you're doing your scan. It'll take a couple, like 2 or 3 tries, and you'll be like, I feel like I don't know how fast I'm going. But once you kind of get it for the 3rd time, you'll be like, you'll kind of get used to the muscle memories there of how fast you can do a scan. So again, just touching on the range here. So when you're doing a scan, you can scan about 50 meters or 165 feet down. If you have a diver, that extends it another 5 meters. And then over here, this is just kind of what I was talking about if you're scanning in some deeper water. So you do a first surface scan, and then you can tilt the device down and scan a little bit deeper. And then you can continue going if you do want to scan all the way straight down.
If this scanner is brought down below 18 feet, say 20 feet or 30 feet, is it just not pressure rated for that? Will it damage it?
If you go deeper than 5 meters, sorry?
Yeah, deeper than 5 meters.
So the deepest it can go and what it's depth rated to if you're diving with it is 5 meters. So we don't recommend going deeper because it's no longer waterproof at that point. So above 5 meters for diving with it. Awesome. So this just helps give you a bit of a visual, again, what I was saying, when you do have a gap in your feedback bar. So if you're working in the short and medium ranges, so if someone's 10 or 20 meters away from you, you're still going to be picking up majority of the person in their scan, and the device will still mark them as an X because they know that it's the density or intensity echo coming back is what is similar to a person. It's when you're working in that long range and someone might be 50 meters away from you, one gap in your feedback bar could be the whole person. So that's just something to keep in mind. Say you're working in a smaller swim area. If you have a gap or 2 in your feedback bar, you're likely going to be okay because the person won't be too far away from you if it's a smaller swim area. But if you have no idea where the person is, last seen point isn't that great, and you're working in that long range and you're trying to find someone, you really want to try and make sure you're filling up that feedback bar black and you're not missing any area and potentially missing your target. So this is just a little bit about sonar. Some of it's pretty straightforward, but just keep in mind, sonar weakens as it travels. So the farther away someone is from you, the harder it is going to be to find them. So it's just something to keep in mind. 50 meter, when someone is fully 50 meters away from you, it's harder to pick them up than if they're 10 meters away from you. So if you're going out and doing practice scans, you'll see that if the farther you send someone away, the harder it is to pick them up. But it has a 50 meter range, so it would be okay in that range. Sonar is dampened by small objects, less likely to be a school of fish, more likely to be some plant life or seaweed or anything in the water. So when you are working in a bunch of plant life, what we recommend is working in short and medium ranges, just because the sonar is a bit stronger there, and some of the sonar will be absorbed by the plant life. So if you're able to, if you can kind of get out past the plant life and scan back in towards the shore, if it's along the shore or something like that, scan back in towards the plant life so you're not using the device right at the get-go in front of the plant life, because then it might be a little bit blocked by it. Do you guys have much plant life or vegetation in the water?
Yeah, certain areas we do, and then certain areas we have pretty open water, so it's kind of a mix.
Yeah, mixed. So you'll notice it as you start playing around with it, and you can try like scanning from different angles is a really great thing to do. So kind of triangulating. So if you do a scan and you see like maybe in the echo map there's something blocking you, like it might be like there might be like a bed of seaweed right there, you can kind of move and scan from a different angle so you can kind of get past that seaweed. Again, this is kind of what I was talking about there. Sonar can't pass through solid objects. So if you're doing a scan and you're noticing that if you turn into the echo map, there's a really bright spot on your screen, that might indicate that there's like something blocking the sonar's field of vision. So you might want to try scanning from a different angle. So if you're scanning, say, from a shoreline and so there's a big rock right in front of you that's blocking it, you might want to move a couple meters over to the left and try and scan back into the water from a different angle to try and get behind whatever that object is that was blocking your view. If there's big drop-offs in the water too, the sonar is kind of not going to bend around the drop-off because it's a very solid line, so it'll just kind of straight over there. So what we then recommend is going past the drop-off and scanning back towards it, so you can get behind it, or going to the edge and then scanning down from there. So just something to be aware of if you know that there's a sudden drop-off somewhere in the water. Sonar can't pass through air. So if you're working on like a really wavy day or something like that, you want to make sure you're trying to get below the waves, just because the sonar is going to get blocked by some of it just because it is hitting air. It's not going to go right through it. So just trying to make sure you're getting below the waves, either by submerging the device deep enough or sending a diver in with it and getting them below the waves, things like that. There are all ways you can use it. Any questions about the sonar so far? We're going to kind of jump into a couple different scenarios here, but is there any questions anyone has that I haven't gone over yet?
No, I think we're good.
All good? Okay. So just going to run you through 3 scenarios here. This is just a first scenario. You can see our scanners circled in white there. And this is just a swim area in BC here. And there's a floating swim barrier that goes down about 1.5 feet. And we have 4 swimmers in the water. So we have 2 in front of the swim barrier and then 2 behind the swim barrier, and then this large pillar as well. So when we did our scan, these are the images that we got. So we marked all of our swimmers as X's. We got a little O for some underwater debris. And then in this case, we did mark this pillar as an X as well. So the device is more conservative in that it will mark something as an X rather than miss someone and not mark them as an X. So there's a couple ways to work around this. First being, in this case, you can visually see this pillar. So you can line up your live cursor with the pillar and know that you can visually see it and that you don't have to think about that target because it's just the pillar. So you don't have to worry about it and you can focus on your other X's in the water. Also, if you look at the echo map, you can see here that the echo follows along that swim barrier in this S-shaped curve, and that pillar is right in line with that swim barrier. So you know that that's another way you can not have to worry about that and focus on these other 4 areas that you marked as X's that show up on the echo map. This little sunburst pattern at the bottom here is just indicating a drop off. So our scanner's standing in about 2.5, 3 feet of water. So it's just getting some reflection right from all the rocks in the shoreline there. And then you can see at about 5-6 meters, it drops off. So it's just indicating that there's a drop off there. So you can also do a scan of the water before you're jumping in it, just to kind of see what the environment's like that you're getting yourselves into. Also in this case too, what a lot of our teams are doing is they would do a scan of this area, and then before sending any divers down, if it's kind of more of a recovery scenario where you have time, you'd go and put buoys on all of the X's that you find when you do a scan. And then you go and you send a diver down at the buoys that you've marked. And so instead of kind of diving and searching the whole body of water, you have, in this case, if you didn't know that this pillar was here, if it was just marking an X, you would have 5 little dives to do rather than having to try and search the whole body of water, is what a lot of teams are doing. So kind of drop the buoys and then you have a diver go down on each one later after you've kind of done your scan and set yourselves up. Any questions on that?
Will a small child still come up as an X?
Will a small child still come up as an X?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of scans on, we didn't use kids, we kind of used child-sized dummies, but kind of working in like the 3 to 4 foot range is where they'll show up. So kind of anything from like a small toddler would likely show up. If it was a missing infant or something like that, you might want to look for O's more than X's just because it's a lot smaller. So if it's an infant, maybe have a look at your O's just because it's not the same size as a person all the time. But if you're looking for a kid, they'll still show up as an X. Any more questions?
I think we're all set.
Perfect. So this is just another scenario here. So what we are scanning against is a solid dock over here. So you can see there's a couple of jumbled O's and X's, but when you switch over into the echo map, you see pretty clearly that that was just you scanning against the edge of the dock. So you're just scanning right on that corner there. So this is just to let you know what a solid object will look like on your screen. So if you're scanning against a vehicle and you're trying to find it, it would show up as kind of a really large white solid object. So just keep that in mind too. If you're being blocked by something that you might not know is in the water, it will show up as a really bright white object on the screen. So this is just the last scenario here. So it's just in a marina with a bit of a channel there. So, and there's a descending embankment over on the other side that has a lot of rocks and trees and debris on it. So we did a scanning from left to right in long range, starting over on the left side here. In the middle is where that bank is. And then we finished the scan over on the right by the boats. So the next screen I'm going to show you is a little bit scary, but it's just to let you know what the device looks like when you're still holding that trigger down. So when you're holding the trigger down, you're still getting a lot of information. Once you release the trigger, that the device will do a final calculation, takes about less than a second, and it just kind of compiles all of that data into something that is less cluttered. So we can kind of see here what we're scanning against right now is that embankment. So we're hitting a solid object, and that's just a device letting you know that it's kind of hitting something that's causing a lot of feedback coming back to the device. It's not sure what it is yet. And this is kind of what it looks like when you release that trigger. So you've still got a couple of items there on that screen. And knowing that how jumbled it was at the beginning and what it looks like now, and then when you switch over into the echo map, you see that that is just you hitting that bank on the other side. So it's just hitting kind of like it's not quite as solid of a wall as that concrete dock, but it's still because it's hitting like some trees and stuff right before it's getting there. So in this scenario, what we recommend doing is using Aqua Eye to clear that open water channel, because you can see there's nothing going on in the water there. So that's just kind of hitting the bank. So you would do your more manual search on the bank and kind of using your eyes, maybe trying to like weed through it a little bit. But then clearing about 90% of the water using Aqua Eye, and you would be able to find a target there too. So what we then did was drop down to medium range, and we put a dummy in the diver on the left and then a diver on the right. So put them under the water, did a scan in medium range, and this is kind of what we got. So we picked up both the dummy and the diver as X's on the screen. And then this is what it looks like in the echo map display. So there's on the left is where the dummy was. On the right, it's hard to see on this just because of the glare, but that's the diver over on the right there. But that's it for the presentation side of things. So we'll stop sharing the screen there. But were there any other questions that you guys had that I might have not covered in that case?
How does a battery
Battery?
Yeah, battery.
Yeah. So battery is a rechargeable battery. So it comes with a little charging dock you'll see in the box there. But it plugs into the wall and you set the device on the charger. And that's just kind of wireless charger there. But the device will last for 12 hours of you holding that trigger constantly. So it will last you for a full day's search of you, because you're not really going to be holding the trigger the whole time, or doing a scan, pulling it out, having a look, doing another scan, that kind of thing. So what we recommend is if the device is just sitting on standby, just checking the battery every 2 to 3 months, and it shouldn't drop down. It'll maybe lose a couple percents there, but just to make sure it's ready to go when you're ready to get a rescue, when you have a rescue call.
How long does the battery generally last before it needs to be replaced?
Yeah, so we've had devices out for 4 years now, and we haven't seen any decline in battery. So it will last you for at least 5 years. We expect it to be longer than that.
When they are in standby mode, though, they should not be on the charger, correct?
Yes, we recommend not leaving it on the charger. There shouldn't be a lot of decline in the battery when it's just sitting. So maybe just turning it on every now and then to see what it's at, throwing it on the charger if it does need to be charged. If the device does go down to 0% and has died, to charge it back up again takes about 2 hours. So it's pretty quick. So you can kind of set it on and then put it back in the box or wherever you store it.
Are batteries replaceable, or does the mechanism need to be replaced entirely?
Yeah. So battery's not replaceable by you, as it is a potted device because it has to be waterproofed. So when you send it back to us, we can do any maintenance that needs to be done to it.
Is there regular maintenance that we calibrated or anything else?
What was that? Sorry, I couldn't quite catch
Is there any regular maintenance, like calibration or any other maintenance that needs to be done to these?
Not right now, not regular maintenance. So we do have, I'm not sure if it was purchased, we do have service plans, but they're optional. So they're not needed, but we do offer them. But we do, as far as calibration goes, I'll be in touch with you, Sean. We do have some new code coming out very shortly, and that allows the device to auto calibrate. So we'll send you, I'll send you some information, and it will update the device to allow it to auto calibrate, and you just use an app on your phone.
Okay, I do not believe we bought the service plan, but what is the warranty?
Okay, you did get the service plan. Sorry, I couldn't remember if you had.
No, we did not.
You did not. Okay.
Yeah.
So warranty. Yeah, warranty is it has a 1 year warranty on it. So if anything happens in that 1 year, let us know. And even though like you didn't go with the service plan option, if something does happen, we still will do service on the unit. Just because you didn't get the service plan doesn't mean we're not going to help you guys out. So it will just cost when you have to go through with the servicing, and we can chat about how much that will cost if it's something you want to look into.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. I'll send you over a document, Sean, that's kind of, we call it our first scan document. And it's just to let you know what we recommend when going and doing your first scan. So we always tell people kind of start in medium range and start in an easier environment, and then kind of work your way up into some more difficult environments. So like maybe starting open water with like one diver in the water or a dummy, and then kind of work your way into something a little bit harder, like hiding the person or working in like a marina type environment, just so it's kind of, you get used to the device and then it gets more complicated as you go. Do you know if you'll be using dummies or divers when you're doing like your training and testing?
We probably use a combination of both.
A combination, okay. Just as a heads up, sometimes, I mean, it depends, our dummies, divers, same thing, right? If you're using a dummy, just a heads up, they don't always show up on the device just because they are not the same density as a person. So if you're not always picking them up as an X on your screen, you can always just add a little bit of bulk to them. Like I know teams have added flippers to the dummy just to make it a little bit more reflective. So it's a little bit more representative of what a person would look like under the water to the device.
All right.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Thank you very much for your time, guys. I'll send over the recording to you, Sean. If you're out in the water and you run into any issues, I'm available to jump on a call or shoot me over an email with some questions. We're here to help you through the process. So if anything comes up, just give me a shout.
Thank you very much, Grace. Appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.